I always believed friendship was thicker than blood. My family was a mess. Growing up, divorced parents, cold holidays, constant yelling. But Juliet Hart, she was my anchor, my home, my sister by choice. We met in 10th grade when I moved to Seattle after my dad remarried. New school, new city, no one to talk to. Juliet showed up like a light, loud, wild magnetic. She had honey blonde curls, infectious confidence, and a way of making you feel like the most important person in the room. She found me in the cafeteria one day eating alone, sketching floor plans on napkins. She leaned over and said, "You draw rooms. That's weird. I like it." That's how it started. And from that moment on, we were inseparable. When I went to study interior design, she took courses in branding and digital marketing. She said, "You'll design it, I'll sell it." We dreamed of starting a design firm together, not just a business, but a lifestyle brand, furniture, art, curated spaces. We named it Haven Collective because that's what we wanted to build, safe, beautiful places in a chaotic world. By our late 20s, we had scraped together just enough to rent a tiny studio space in Capitol Hill. Juliet handled socials, curated the vibe, brought in influencers to promote us. I stayed up nights drawing layouts, choosing materials, dealing with difficult contractors, but we were winning, slowly, steadily. One photo shoot at a time, one collab at a time, people started noticing. And somewhere along that journey, I met Ethan Kane. He was a lawyer who came in to consult about a licensing contract for our signature lighting line, tall, sharp, jaw, dark suits. The kind of man who commanded rooms without even trying. He looked at my sketches like they were art, said I had vision. Juliet liked him too, but in the way she liked everything shiny and expensive. "That man has yacht energy," she joked one night after he left. "You better marry him before I do." I laughed, not realizing those words would come back to haunt me. When Ethan proposed, Juliet was the first person I told. She screamed like we were teenagers again, tackled me into a hug, and immediately started planning my bachelorette party. "We'll do the wedding in Palm Springs," she said. "Desert chic. I'll handle the social rollout. It'll go viral." I trusted her with everything. The decor, the vendors, the speeches, even the guest list. I was drowning in client work and trying to secure a pop-up showcase at a big LA expo. Juliet said, "Leave it to me. You built the castle. I'll make it sparkle." And I believed her. That's the thing about betrayal. It never comes from enemies. It comes from the people who know where you're softest. The first crack came a few weeks before the wedding. Ethan started pulling away, canceled dinners, texts instead of calls. He blamed work stress, logistics. Juliet told me not to worry. "He's just freaking out because you're amazing. He knows he doesn't deserve you." It was a Tuesday night when it happened. I'd stayed late at the studio finishing up renderings. Around midnight, I realized I left my backup drive at Juliet's. We lived in the same building, separate units on the same floor. I walked down the hall barefoot, carrying Thai takeout, figuring we'd laugh and debrief, but when I opened the door with my spare key, the laughter was already inside. Ethan's blazer was on the back of her couch, his shoes by the door. Juliet's robe, my bridal robe, the one I picked out for her to wear the morning of the wedding, was crumpled at the foot of the stairs. And them, I heard them before I saw them. I froze. They didn't. I backed away, gently closed the door, and stood in the hallway shaking. My heart wasn't even broken yet. It was in denial. I waited. I wanted it to be a mistake, a dream. Juliet texted me 10 minutes later. "Hey babe, don't freak out. We need to talk." That's when the heartbreak arrived. The next day, Ethan showed up with a bouquet and hollow eyes. He said it just happened that they'd crossed a line once, but it meant nothing. But his eyes said otherwise. There was no guilt, just fear of consequences. Juliet didn't even try to deny it. She leaned back on the studio couch, sipping an iced coffee like she was bored. "You've always had the talent, Riley, but I've always had the spotlight. Ethan's just a casualty of proximity." I remember exactly what she said next. "You built the house, but I made it beautiful. Ethan was always mine. You just borrowed him." That's when something inside me died, and something else was born. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I packed my bags, shut down my personal socials, and left the city. They thought I'd disappear for good. They didn't know I was just getting started. After I walked out of Juliet's apartment that night, I didn't go home. I walked for blocks through the quiet streets of Seattle, past the neon bars where we used to hang out, past the bistro where Ethan had proposed. Every corner held a memory that now felt fake, manufactured, designed by them to control me, to keep me soft and obedient. I stayed at a cheap airport hotel that night, lying awake on scratchy sheets, with my engagement ring on the nightstand like a murder weapon. At some point near dawn, I slipped it into a glass of tap water and watched it sink. I never touched it again. The next morning, I sent one text to Juliet. "The studio is yours for now. No drama, no public meltdown, just silence. But inside, I was breaking in places I didn't know could shatter. In the days that followed, I watched from the shadows as Juliet rewrote our story. She posted a soft-lit photo of herself and Ethan holding hands at a rooftop brunch with the caption, "Sometimes the best things come when you least expect them." The comments were full of fire emojis and hearts. Only a few brave souls asked what happened to the wedding to me. Juliet didn't answer. Ethan disabled comments. Then came the next blow. Juliet went live on our company's Instagram page, not hers. Ours Haven Collective, she said, smiling into the camera, has always been about vision, and I want to thank you, our amazing followers, for helping this brand become what it is. I've been pouring my soul into this for years, and now I'm excited to take it in a new direction. She didn't mention my name once. Instead, she uploaded a polished video reintroducing Haven Collective as her solo venture founded by Juliet Hart for modern women who build beautiful lives. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional. She took our name, our branding, our client list. She changed all the passwords, updated the LLC to reflect her as sole founder, and she did it with that same confident, rehearsed sparkle, like none of it mattered, like I had been a shadow in her spotlight all along. I wanted to scream to burn it all down, but something inside me whispered, "Not yet. Let her believe she's won." I consulted an attorney, but Juliet was careful. Technically, the business had been in her name for tax reasons when we first registered it. Something I never questioned because we were best friends and I was drowning in design projects at the time. She used that trust to lock me out. Every legal path was tangled in NDAs, loopholes, and costs I couldn't afford. Ethan was now her legal advisor, of course, he made sure of that. And then the worst of it came. I was shopping at a corner market, hood pulled up when I saw my face on the cover of a local lifestyle magazine. Juliet was being interviewed for Seattle Modern, and the headline read, "Juliet Hart talks betrayal business and building a brand alone." In the article, she didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. She had a toxic presence. Juliet said, "I believe in second chances. But not everyone grows with you." I read it over and over, numb, wondering how someone who had once cried into my lap during heartbreaks could now weaponize her words like this. My phone buzzed with messages from old classmates, colleagues, even my aunt in Ohio. "Riley, is any of this true?" "What happened?" She said. "You sabotaged her." Juliet had flipped the script so fast, I didn't even get a chance to speak, and I didn't try. Because I knew that any defense I made would sound like bitterness, and Juliet was already 5 steps ahead, painting herself as the phoenix who rose from the ashes of a toxic partnership. So I let it happen. I packed my things, drained what was left of my savings, and drove 6 hours east to my grandmother's abandoned farmhouse in Walla Walla. No Wi-Fi, no noise, just the slow creak of wind through shutters and the heavy silence of starting over. In that broken-down house surrounded by peeling wallpaper and dusty furniture, I faced the most painful truth of all. I hadn't just lost my fiancé, I hadn't just lost my business, I had lost myself. Everything had revolved around Juliet, her energy, her presence, her ambitions. I was the builder, the creator, the structure behind the scenes. She was the sparkle. And now she had taken all the credit and left me with nothing. But something about that emptiness was freeing. No more pretending, no more performing, just me, a notebook, and a pencil. So I started sketching again. Floor plans, mood boards, new collections. Only this time I wasn't designing for clients or social media posts. I was designing for revenge, not the loud, messy kind, the quiet kind, the permanent kind, the kind where you take back everything, not just with fire, but with brilliance. I wrote one word on the first page of that notebook, reclaim. And beneath it, the blueprint of my next move began to form. Walla Walla was silent in a way I hadn't experienced since childhood. No notifications, no camera clicks, no Juliet. The farmhouse had no heat, and the roof leaked when it rained, but it was mine. It didn't ask for anything but patience. And patience was something I was learning painfully, beautifully. I spent the first month living off canned soup and broken dreams, using my grandmother's dining table as a makeshift drafting desk. I sketched from dawn until midnight. Not for clients, not for Juliet's followers, but for myself. Design had always been my therapy. Now it was my weapon. By week 6, I had a collection of new interior concepts, so bold, so personal, they didn't fit inside anything I'd ever built before. Spaces that told stories. Grief in curved archways, healing in warm textures, vengeance in clean, brutalist lines, and somewhere between memory and blueprint, an idea took root. I reached out to an old contact, Lena Cho, a restaurant owner in Spokane, who once begged Juliet to promote her new fusion bistro. Juliet had ghosted her, saying the vibe was too off-brand. I emailed Lena under a new name, Claire Monroe, a designer from New West Concepts, a small firm nobody had heard of yet. Lena gave me a shot. I redesigned her entire dining space in 6 weeks, blending Korean textures with raw wood and arched lighting. She cried when she saw the final render. Word spread like fire. Claire Monroe was suddenly the name to know in boutique hospitality design. I kept it small at first, just enough to pay rent, fix the plumbing, and buy a decent laptop. But with every project, my confidence returned, my voice sharpened. My style matured into something Juliet could never mimic. And the best part? No one knew it was me. I built a quiet empire under that name, restaurants, lounges, 2 boutique hotels, a showroom in Portland that drew celebrity interest. Claire Monroe wasn't trending on Instagram, but she was dominating private industry circles. Every time I saw Juliet post a new reel bragging about designing for female empowerment, I smiled. She didn't know that her biggest threat was already steps ahead, watching her crumble in slow motion. A year after my disappearance, I knew it was time to build something Juliet couldn't ignore. So I launched Interior Reclaim, a boutique-style investment firm focused on rescuing small design startups. I kept my identity hidden behind an LLC and a CEO photo that wasn't mine. The team was tight, trustworthy people who knew pain and ambition could live in the same chest. I used the firm to do 2 things. 1. Help other women like me, brilliant but betrayed, get a second chance. 2. Set the perfect trap for Juliet. Juliet and Ethan, now branded as the Heart Kane Collective, had been losing traction. Their followers were high, but engagement was down. Too many stories, not enough substance. They were desperate for expansion, for legitimacy. That's when my assistant, posing as a talent scout, slid into Juliet's inbox. Hi, Juliet. I represent a niche design investor looking to acquire shares in promising female-led lifestyle brands. We love your aesthetic and would like to talk about potential partnership. Juliet replied within 30 minutes, classic her. We arranged a meeting. Juliet showed up in a power suit, Ethan beside her, both oblivious. They had no idea they were walking into my space. Of course I didn't attend in person. I watched the whole thing via live feed from my laptop. Ethan pitched like a pro. Juliet smiled and sparkled and flirted with the fake CEO on Zoom. They offered 20% equity in exchange for capital and media amplification. We offered $200,000 and a 6-month brand consolidation just to streamline strategy. They signed. And just like that, everything they thought was theirs became mine. 2 weeks later, I sent Juliet an invitation, hand-delivered, embossed, elegant, black and gold. It read, Interior Reclaim cordially invites you to our Founders Showcase Gala, celebrating women who build dress code, dramatic presence, mandatory. Claire Monroe. She showed up in a glittering champagne gown, Ethan at her side, both expecting a photo shoot and more investors. Instead, when the lights dimmed, a single spotlight hit the stage and I stepped into it. In a black velvet pantsuit, hair down, voice steady, the room went dead silent, gasps. Then her voice, Riley. I smiled. Oh, Juliet, I thought you liked surprises. Juliet stood frozen in the middle of the gala floor, lips parted, eyes wide, fingers still clutched around her champagne flute. She looked like a glitch in a perfect program, too stunned to compute what she was seeing. Riley, she repeated quieter now, as if saying it twice might make me vanish. I stepped further into the spotlight. Gasps rippled through the room. I saw Ethan tense beside her, his jaw twitching in that familiar way he used to do when confronted. But tonight there was no escape hatch. This wasn't my breakdown, this was my stage. Welcome, I said, calm and deliberate, to the company you just sold. To me. The room went dead silent. Ethan's voice cracked through it. You can't be Claire Monroe, I tilted my head. Oh, but I am. Claire Monroe is my middle name. Monroe was my grandmother's surname. The farmhouse I rebuilt. Her home, the brand you chased. Her legacy. You see, while you were stealing my past, I was building my future. Juliet tried to laugh. It came out like a cough. This is illegal. This is entrapment. No, Juliet, this is business. I raised a remote. The screen behind me lit up. Slides rotated, a timeline of their brand's acquisition by Interior Reclaim, the legal documents signed willingly. A clause on page 7. All associated digital properties, trademarks, and public assets are subject to brand consolidation during the 6-month period. Every Instagram follower, every branding deal, every press feature with Juliet's face on it belonged to me. You didn't read it, did you? I asked, my voice cutting through her silence. You were too busy being the star. Juliet's hands started to shake. I made Haven what it is. No, you destroyed it. I rebuilt it. Ethan stepped forward, trying to salvage the moment. We can work this out. You made your point. Let's renegotiate. I cut him off, eyes narrowing. You're not in a courtroom, Ethan. And in this company, you're not even a footnote. More murmurs from the crowd. Phones were out now, people recording. Juliet's carefully curated image was slipping between her fingers, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I turned to the crowd. Everyone, I said, lifting my glass. Please allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Riley Monroe Moore, founder of Claire Monroe, living CEO of Interior Reclaim, survivor of betrayal, and designer of what comes after. Applause broke out, polite at first, then thunderous. Not just because of what I had done, but because of how I had done it. Clean, cold, impeccably dressed in velvet power, Juliet looked like she wanted to vanish into the floor. I almost pitied her. Almost. After the event, she waited for me in the hallway near the service entrance. The makeup she'd so perfectly applied had started to smudge. Her voice wasn't sharp anymore, it was small. You planned this? All of it, she asked, staring at the carpet. I nodded. Every piece, every paper you didn't read, every post you lost, every door that just closed for you. I made mistakes, but I didn't think you'd hate me this much. I leaned against the wall coolly. I don't hate you, Juliet. You're not important enough anymore. She looked up, stung. You took my fiancé, my company, my name, and then you told the world I was toxic. You wanted all the light without any of the work. Well, now you have the spotlight, but everyone can see you clearly now, and you've got nothing to stand on. Her voice cracked. I was jealous, but I never thought you'd win. That was the last honest thing she ever said to me. The fallout happened fast. Within 48 hours, I had full control of their social accounts. I issued a rebranding statement delicately crafted. Sometimes stories begin with betrayal, but the best ones begin again with truth. Ethan's firm dropped him. Juliet's sponsors pulled out. Their podcast was quietly deleted. The Heart Cane Collective became a ghost brand while Interior Reclaim tripled in value. But the revenge wasn't in what I took. It was in what they had to watch me become. Juliet tried one last time. She emailed a week later. Subject from one friend to another. Riley, I know there's no fixing this, but I miss you. I miss us. I was wrong. And I let my ego ruin everything. Can we talk? I didn't respond for 3 days. Then I sent just one line. You already said everything when you walked into Ethan's arms. She never replied. 6 months after the gala, I stood in the middle of the newly opened Claire Monroe flagship showroom in downtown Seattle, a space flooded with natural light, warm oak beams, and handcrafted pieces that took me a lifetime to find the courage to design. The showroom was busy, alive with clients, press, and laughter. But me, I stood still in the center, grounded, present. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was building something to prove a point. I was just building. Juliet had disappeared from the public eye. A few bloggers had tried to resurrect her image, calling the gala a corporate ambush, but most people saw it for what it was, a carefully orchestrated redemption arc, and not hers. Her name became a whisper, a warning. Don't pull a Juliet. It meant, don't step on the one who made you. As for Ethan, he moved to Arizona to start over. He sent me a legal letter asking for the return of a few personal items that had ended up in Juliet's storage unit, mostly cufflinks and watches. I had my lawyer ship them back with a note. Memories not included, petty maybe, but sometimes you get the last word in silence. In the months that followed, I gave interviews, not revenge exposés or juicy gossip, just thoughtful reflections about starting again, trusting your own voice, and how betrayal, when you survive it, becomes blueprint. I never once said Juliet's name, not out of kindness, but out of clarity. She didn't belong in this chapter, not anymore. Then one morning, I got a letter, a real one, no email, no signature. It was postmarked from a small town in Oregon. Inside was a photograph of me and Juliet back in high school. We were wearing matching tie-dye sweatshirts, arms slung over each other, grinning like we owned the future. On the back she'd written, I knew you'd be the one to make it. I just didn't know it would hurt this much to watch. No name, no apology, just truth scribbled in fading ink. I stared at the photo for a long time, and then I slid it into a drawer I never opened again. Later that week, I was walking past a bookstore when I overheard a woman say my name. She's the one who came back from nothing, right? Built her whole brand after being betrayed. Her friend nodded. I love her story. It's not even about revenge, it's about resilience. That stopped me in my tracks. Because for the first time I realized they were right. This hadn't been about Juliet or Ethan or what they took from me. It had been about what I refused to let them take, my name, my vision, my fire. That night, I stood alone on the rooftop of my apartment. Not the penthouse Juliet used to dream about. This one was better, smaller, simpler, mine. Seattle's skyline shimmered beneath me. The wind carried no ghosts, just breath, just beginnings. I thought about calling someone, about sharing this moment, but instead, I whispered to the night like I was speaking to the version of me who once stood shattered in that hotel room. You made it, and that was enough. Final scene. The showroom closed at dusk. As I turned off the lights, a little girl outside the glass door looked in and said to her mom, "I want to make rooms like that when I grow up." Her mom smiled. "Maybe one day, baby. You just need a little courage." I walked over, unlocked the door, and knelt down beside the girl. "Courage doesn't come first," I told her. "It comes after you think you've lost everything and keep going anyway." She smiled wide, so did I. They took what I built, lied about who I was, tried to replace me in the story I wrote with my own hands. But I didn't scream. I didn't fight back the way they expected. I vanished. I rebuilt. I reappeared. And in the silence between revenge and healing, I found power they never knew I had. They stole my spotlight, so I built the whole damn stage.